Hi everyone, this is Wolf Branch Homestead. Today we're making a video that's going to be compatible with one of my Mother Earth News online blog posts called Building an Emergency Poultry Kit. Now the article goes into a list of different things and why they're important to have, but we're going to talk about it more in depth with some personal experience behind it. So on the actual website here, you can see on Mother Earth News, if I can get it to actually zoom in here. There we go. You can go on Mother Earth News and look up Building an Emergency Poultry Kit. And you'll see the actual article. We'll link it below. And I'm basically just going to go into this article and pick out parts and information for you and kind of talk about it and why it's important to have an emergency kit, not just for your poultry, but also your other animals too. There's different things that can be used for multiple different types of animals. And for us, we've learned how important that is to have these things on hand. So, at the beginning of this article, we're basically just talking a little bit more about why this is all important. Throughout the video, we're going to be talking about different products. And what I'm going to do, it's in the article, but I'm also going to put it in the description of this video. We're going to link some products for you that are on Amazon. And these Amazon links, as kind of a disclaimer, we're part of the Amazon affiliate program. So if you make a purchase of these items through the links, we get a small commission back out of it. So not only would you be investing in yourself and your animals, but also a little bit of it comes back to help us. It's a very small amount, but it's also a way for us to kind of help others learn about important products. So we appreciate if you view any of these links, if you actually order anything through it and add anything to your kit, if you add other products while you're using the same link, we really appreciate it. The beginning of this article is basically talking about how, you hear the phrase prior proper planning. There's different versions of it, but just basically the 3 P's. It's better to prepare ahead of time than be caught unaware and off guard. Regardless of the way that you've heard it, if you prepare, you help yourself not have a negative outcome by being unprepared, essentially. If you have a backyard flock, you have backyard poultry, if you have just a handful of egg layers, or you have a few ducks that you raise, you have some geese, things like that, this video and this article are kind of designated to you. But again, these products can really help you with your other animals as well. So consider looking up emergency supplies you may need for a cat or a dog, especially like now where it's about to be the weekend, it's about to be a holiday. Your nearest emergency vet, your nearest large animal care center, something like that, they may be closed or they may be really far away from you, so it's good to be prepared. When you have these things show up, I'm speaking from personal experience, that knowing your animals, knowing what's happening and having supplies on hand could really be a lifesaver for them. For us, where we live at, there aren't a lot of stores around. They don't have a lot of supplies, especially not for animals. And the nearest like farm centers or something like that, they're going to be 30 plus minutes away from us. So that's not even to say that they would have anything in stock when you got there. And if you're ordering something online, you're having to wait for it to be delivered. The mail does run late, even if you have something where you try to priority ship it and get it there faster. And you could be really pushing the clock on helping to save your animal or to tend to them in an instance where you can't get to the store, you can't order something. Having these supplies could mean all the difference. When I first started researching this, not only from personal experience, but also from others' experiences, I reached out to the community of good people on Backyard Chickens. It's an online forum, and a lot of people on there really know their stuff. They raise animals on different scales, and that website specifically, they have sister websites. They have Backyard Herds, The Easy Garden, and Sufficient Self, all for different categories. But Backyard Chickens is by far the largest, and it's all a group of people that are dedicated to their poultry. And there's so much to be learned there. And that's why I went on Backyard Chickens and asked people, what kind of things they have in an emergency kit, because I knew somebody out there had to have something like that already prepared. And we basically asked everybody, hey, what kind of supplies can I have on hand? What are good things to keep and have just in case something happens with my flock? And there were so many great suggestions, a lot of very similar things across everybody's lists, and we wanted to compile all that together and make it easier for people that wanted to be prepared. So a lot of these products we've used ourselves. There may be some things that you already have on hand, but there are more things to consider having if you don't already. Again, you'll find all the things that we're talking about in the description below and helpful clickable links. And again, as a disclosure, it's Amazon affiliate links. So it provides a little support back to the homestead if you use those links. Make sure with any animal, especially, it's harder to find avian veterinarians, people that will treat chickens, ducks, things like that. So it's always good, first thing, to have a list on hand of your veterinarians that will take those animals or that can provide any kind of input over the phone if they are a little bit further off. Make sure you know, if you really care about them and you want to get the right advice, make sure you know who your veterinarians are. And not just with your birds, but your dogs, your cats, your livestock, things like that. It's very, very important. And you can try to look something up online and you might misdiagnose something. Just remember to always use a trained professional. Some of the things that are really important, not just for, like we said, poultry, but for any animal, is to have something like a large crate. When we bring in new animals, we have to quarantine them, like say our chickens. When we got our rescue hen Wally, we had to keep her separated. So to start with, we had her in a very large dog crate. And being in this crate kept her separated so that she wasn't, cross-contaminating other animals or them contaminating her, something like that, while she was quarantined, and made keeping up with her a lot easier since we didn't have a whole separate pen for this at the time. These crates are really good for separating the animals out for individual treatment. If you have a chicken that needs one-on-one attention and medication, things like that, they need to be separated because they might be picked on or further injured. Have yourself a good crate. Now they make the open air style and they make the ones that are a little more closed, so they're not as open. They have a front to them that will open up, but the sides are not completely open. So there's different styles of those crates that you should be able to have on hand. Also having a small carrying crate if you have to take your bird to the vet, or if you have to transport it to a different area of your home, especially if you're going to bring it inside or something like that. Having a small pet crate will help you move them. Also, when you have a large crate, if you have to have the animal inside to be separated and to really keep an eye on them, if you're not somebody that's going to have like a bathtub where they could stay at, or have some people use like the big galvanized tubs for younger animals that may need a heat lamp. But if you have a larger animal, then you can use the crates like that and have them in the home where you can keep a better eye on them. And especially if you need a quiet place for them to be observed and separate them from the rest of the flock, this is a good idea. Vet wrap is really important. When you have an injury that needs to be wrapped up, having that vet tape, that like the pet wrap basically, where you can wrap around the wound to keep it from, like say a bandage or gauze, from falling off. The vet wrap is made where it's not going to stick to them, but it will stick to itself. When working in a vet clinic, we used a lot of this, and it's very helpful to have on hand for any of your animals, especially, like I said, not just your chickens, but also dogs, cats. If you have some kind of small injury that needs to be tended to immediately, you could do something like that and use the vet tape with it. Waterproof tape for bandages. I'm pretty sure this is something that they stopped making like it was. I'm not sure offhand, but having something to bandage your animal where it's waterproof, especially if you have something like ducks where they like to be around water to clean and preen themselves, having something waterproof to keep something from getting into that injury is a really good idea. Non-stick gauze, if you need to cover a particular area and you don't want it to stick to the wound. Having something like sharp scissors or trauma shears is a really good idea. We have a nice pair of sharper scissors here, and we also have a set of trauma shears, so you can use them for different purposes. The trauma shears we have were like military style, where it was actually like for field use, things like that. Having scissors on hand, you never know what you're going to use them for. And a good thing about having a good pair of scissors is if you are somebody that knows how to properly clip your animal's wings, if you don't want them to fly so much, like we usually will trim one side of the wings on the chickens just to keep them from trying to fly up, even though their pen is a lot taller now. Usually we still clip wings just to be safe, and having a good pair of scissors will help with that, so you're not inside using your house scissors for something like that if you want to make sure you keep them separated and clean. Have a good pair, well, rather a good box of gloves. Depending on your allergies, what size your hand is, you need to select something that's going to fit your hand correctly. Usually I will use vinyl or nitrile, and then they have latex gloves. And some will be powdered or powder free. So it's all depending on what kind of glove that you can use. Usually, like I said, I believe the vinyl ones are cheaper than the nitrile ones. So the toss up with that is the cheaper ones are usually going to rip a lot easier. They're not going to be as sturdy. And the good thing about these gloves is not only are these good for helping with your animals, keeping nasty things off your hands, but we also save them for when we go and we pick up hides from the processors to responsibly tan them, and I use the gloves for a lot of things in that process. So gloves are good to have on hand, not just for your emergency kit, but for a lot of other household things. Make sure you keep things like rubbing alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, antibiotic ointment, things to help clean a wound. There's a lot of different things on here listed about wound care. I think it's Vetericin, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it's a wound spray. And years ago, when I was working in an animal shelter, we had a hen come in that had been attacked by dogs. She was in really bad shape, but we used that spray to help her on the wounds on her back, and she eventually, after her medication and everything, all of her wound treatment, she healed and turned into a really beautiful chicken, and that was one of the products that we used to help her along. Make sure you have things like petroleum jelly, like Vaseline. Usually the Vaseline, I've heard a lot of people use that when they have scaly leg mites and other different things they might need it for. Some people will use it to help with a hen that might be egg bound or something like that. Make sure you have things, again, there's a further down the list, we have Blue Coat antiseptic spray some people will use. Things like syringes, Q-tips, you might need things like that. Usually syringes, for us locally, it's very hard to find a box of syringes. Usually they only sell them single packs, so that's something that you would want to order online. Having a good headlamp, something where you can see the animal, and especially if it's at night and you're trying to check on them, so your hands free, you don't have your hands bound up by holding a light, you can actually handle the animal safely and still have visible light. Some people use Epsom salt, and that helps for a variety of things. A lot of people will suggest, again, we had a hen that was kind of egg bound at one point, and we used the Epsom salt to help relax her in a nice soak bath. When you go to dry them off after they've had a small bath or something like that, make sure you have some towels, maybe a small hair dryer for something like that, where you can help kind of fluff them out and keep them from being really wet. The blow dryer, usually if you turn it on low, it's not so scary for them. They can still have a reaction to it, so you might want to start off by pointing it away from the bird to make sure that they're not going to completely freak out when you use it. But if they're really down for the count, they may not be as mobile as they should be, so you can kind of just, again, trying to be stress-free about it and just carefully try to dry the animal off. Having a bunch of scrap towels, like old bath towels you're not using anymore. You can check your thrift stores that are around you and yard sales. People are often getting rid of towels that way, so having towels and rags is also a good idea. I'm not sure how you pronounce it essentially, but styptic powder, the quick stop, this is really good. Not just for your birds, but also cats and dogs. If you're trimming toenails on your animals, like we have a hen that when we adopted her in, she had really deformed feet, and it was like this probably when she was a baby from having like a mineral deficiency. Her feet are really deformed and curl inward, and we have to trim her toenails. But her toenails are really light colored where I can see them to know how to trim them. But if you're trimming your chickens, nails or something like that, or you're even trimming dog nails, cat nails, and you have to be really careful with it, especially those that have dark toenails. It's a lot harder to see where the quick is on them. So quick stop is meant for if you trim the nails and you have a small cut that's too far into the quick and it starts to bleed, you dip it into the powder, or they make an actual that's on a stick where it has the material on the end of the stick, and you can put it on their foot and move it, or on the end of the nail, excuse me, and then you can roll it back and forth to get it to stop bleeding. There are some other things, again, where you get into actual treatment aspects of things, where make sure you consult with a vet. If you have the ability to, please make sure you reach out to your vet and make sure that you're doing things correctly. Some of the things that we have on hand in instances like this are going to be Corid. Corid is for management and treatment of coccidiosis. And not only have we used this for the birds, but we've also had to use this for our goats. When we took the fecal samples to our vet, they told us how to treat the coccidia, and we used Corid for that. Things like Nutri-Drench and Save-A-Chick, you have different nutritional vitamin supplements, electrolytes, probiotics. A lot of the time, the little electrolyte and probiotic supplements will basically really make a difference when you have small chicks and ducklings and you're trying to help them along. Especially if you're raising ducklings. I didn't know this early on, but for me it's very important now that the nutritional requirements of ducks are going to be different. And having, I believe it's niacin, you can have a niacin deficiency, and it can really have an impact on your baby ducklings. So please do your research when you're going to raise young animals and understand their nutritional requirements, and understand that it's going to be different for different species. Another valuable thing to have on hand is permethrin spray, or the dust, whichever one you'd like to use. The spray we usually use for premises, so if we're going to clean out a coop area and we're going to rebed it, if we've noticed anything like lice or mites, we're going to apply that and spray the coop down, let it air out really well, and then rebed it. Dust you can use and dust animals with it, but you make sure when you're using something like this that you refer to the manufacturer guidelines. They're going to be on the back of the bottle that you're using. And if it's something that's a little bit older and it might be faded, make sure you check all of your manufacturer instructions, whether you get them on the bottle or online. Look at the website that they have, and they should have information there. Some other important things, depending on what animals you're raising. Again, we have listed cotton swabs, cotton balls. Other people, if you need something like a heating pad or a heat lamp, those are going to be really helpful for animals that might be kind of sickly. Especially if you have younger animals, having a heat lamp could be a good idea. Body temperature is really key, especially, again, with younger chicks and ducklings. They can get too hot, they can get too cold. So giving them places, if you have to confine them or you have them separated, give them space to warm up if they'd like to, but to get away from the heat source if they're getting too hot. And make sure any animal that you have, that you are making sure to feed them and water them correctly. Make sure your animals are hydrated, especially as hot as it is right now. Please make sure your animals are hydrated. Another thing you can have on hand is something like a extra food or water station for them. So have like extra bowls, extra of the watering dishes, the little sets that they have that usually have a feeder and a waterer together. Those are a good idea to have extras of, especially if you have to isolate them and you have them in a crate or something like that, so you're not taking away from what your other birds may be using. And another thing especially is to have something to put all of this in that's sealed. When you have all these supplies, depending on where you're keeping them at, it's very easy for rodents to get into your supplies, and you don't want to lose that, especially if you've spent a lot of money to prepare in case something happens and you have all these supplies. You don't want mice, rats, things like that getting into your materials. And especially, even if not that problem, you don't want to have to reach through a bunch of spider webs or possibly reach into an area on a shelf where there might be snakes at, something like that. So get yourself a nice little Rubbermaid to put everything in that has a closing lid, and don't pack it too full where that the lid will try to pop off or that the sides bulge out and it won't fit on there. Make sure that you pack it correctly and you don't have it, again, where it won't close. Make sure that it'll close tight and seal up so you don't have anything get in there with your supplies. Another thing to have is cleaning supplies. If you have an isolated bird, like I said, when we had our bird in quarantine, when we first got her, the one that we rescued, I had a totally different solution. Like, I would wear my boots and I would tend all the other animals first, and then I would come to her after I had bleached my boots off. I had a little, like a tub set up where I could actually use the bleach water on my boots to get them cleaned up. Having things where you can clean your workspace up, to disinfect it, to clean up any mess that may have been made. Have yourself your cleaning supplies, your paper towels, dirty rags, things like that. There are rags that you can use for something like that essentially and throw them away. Again, as we mentioned in the article, please make sure to consult an avian veterinarian if at all possible, and read all your instructions and do your research and be educated when you're preparing this. And again, this is kind of the basics of some things that you can start getting together for your emergency kit for your poultry. There's a lot of other ideas out there, things that people use. This is just kind of a basic structure for something like we would keep. And again, there are materials that can help you with your other animals as well. So having all of this on hand is really beneficial, not just for your chickens, your ducks, your geese, things like that, but for other animals as well. And it's also good to have medical supplies like the first aid ointment, your rubbing alcohol, peroxide, bandages, things like that. It's good to have it on hand just for you. You never know what kind of injury you're going to get. We've had plenty of little mishaps around here where we've really needed something like that. And we also keep a first aid kit in our vehicle anywhere we go. I'm very prone to getting injured, so I will often cut my hands a lot, and that has been really beneficial for me to have these things on hand and have a first aid kit just even for us. We're curious to know what kind of things you have in emergency kits at your home, whether that be for your chickens or for your other animals. We'd like to hear more about what kind of supplies that you keep on hand, and let us know some of the things. Just comment and let us know what kind of things maybe we've missed that people should add in there. We'll add it in the description, so if there's something that you think might be valuable to this kit that we didn't include in the list, we'll add it in there later on. And again, talking about veterinarian aspect of it, a lot of the time, I know for us, it's very difficult to find somebody that will really tend to chickens. Now, the first step I would suggest would be to contact your local veterinarian. If they don't do anything like that, then try to find one in a surrounding area that tends to not only small animal, but large animal, livestock, things like that as well. in the event that your local veterinarian, and maybe even the ones around you that tend to livestock and farm animals, if they don't treat chickens, ducks, things like that, whatever animal that you have, then your next step in that aspect would be to check with your local veterinary school. A lot of them will have programs where trained staff members and students that are learning there can tend to animals together, and you may have more luck with something like that. I know there are some lists online that mention avian veterinarians. They might have more to do with like parrots and things like that, more so than chickens. So just really do your homework and see who you have around you that could help you out in these instances. And I know for us, I've tried to reach out to the state veterinary board, basically to try to see if I could find anybody that does this. I haven't got any answers back, and I've tried to look into it a little bit more. So let us know if you know of a good avian veterinarian, somebody that will treat backyard poultry in your state. Let us know also in the comments. That will really benefit other people and help us figure out where these people may be located at. Again, I'm not a trained professional. I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not a vet student. So this is just a suggested list of things as a just in case. It's not intended to diagnose or treat anything. And again, just use your information that you have and talk to a veterinarian to get good treatment advice if you ever have anything happen with your animals. We appreciate you watching and learning more with us, and appreciate you learning about these emergency kits and why you should have one on hand. Compatible with the Backyard Chickens website, where I kind of got all this information as far as what people keep in their kits, Backyard Chickens has been a very valuable resource for us, and there have been many times where their advice has probably saved the life of our chickens. We had a hen quite a few years ago that went downhill, and we used a lot of their advice on what to do with her. And that was an instance where I'm glad that we had syringes on hand, because we had to actually kind of flush her out using the syringe with the water. And also when we had Wally had a really bad I think it was sour crop. She had that last year, it may have been, and that was an instance where the medicine that we had to get for her, if we would have had to order that, she probably wouldn't have made it. But we went and managed to go down the road to the store and found something that would help, and also changing her diet to help balance her out. And thankfully, Wally pulled through that perfectly. She's doing great now, and we really thank all the advice there. So make sure to check out Backyard Chickens if you're not already a member, and you can learn a lot there and talk to other members and share your experiences with them and learn from them as well. Again, make sure to pay attention to how your animals behave and know their normal mannerisms, and be alert to if something goes wrong. Know if they're eating or drinking, if they're using the bathroom okay, if they're laying eggs, things like that. Not just for your poultry, but all your animals as well. It's very important. And after a recent bout with one of our kitties having urinary issues, time was of the essence. And knowing that he was acting completely different and he wasn't wanting to eat his favorite food, that made a lot of difference in making sure that he got the right veterinary treatment quickly. And that could have been really bad if he had not been treated. So make sure that you pay attention again to how your animals are behaving normally, and know when something is a sign that something's wrong. And behavior is also one of the biggest things to keep in your mental emergency kit as well. We thank you so much for joining us, watching this video, listening and learning with us. We appreciate you following along with all of our adventures, and if you're not subscribed, we hope that you will. We don't really make anything off the channel monetarily, because we're not big enough to do anything like that or have ad revenue. We just appreciate you following along and watching everything with us. And again, make sure to comment below. Let us know what you have in your kit. Let us know if you have a good poultry veterinarian in your area. And as always, we hope you have a wonderful day.